Hello, Math 319. My name is Trevor Wisnowski, broadcasting live from Ferris State University's East Campus Suites. Today I'm excited to begin my Unit 2 reflection on some of the course outcomes I feel are most essential to anyone looking to succeed in this class. Overall, I think that we've seen that as a part of this class, a lot of our success comes from the different ways in which we collaborate on different problems, how we communicate those answers to those problems, and how we use some of the strategies we've learned to solve those problems. And today, I'd just like to go through a couple of those course outcomes I've found to be most important when I'm solving these problems and see what we can do with it moving forth. When thinking about which course outcomes to cover as a part of this video, I really thought back to the things I've been able to learn already as a part of this class. I think overall we've been able to identify what different things help us communicate more effectively and collaborate well in our discussion boards and assignments, but I think, in my opinion, what's really been able to help me succeed is how I prepare and plan for my problems. So, the course outcomes I've chosen to discuss involve those things that help me prepare for these problems, organize my information, and eventually explain my solution process. The two course outcomes I've chosen to discuss are the first one, which involves using a variety of strategies to solve problems, as well as the third one, which involves formulating and implementing a plan for problem solving. More than anything as a part of this reflection, I'd just like to emphasize how important these new learned skills are to improving student experiences in the classroom. The way in which we organize our information, prepare for a problem, and then thoroughly explain our solution process are all going to help our students be very effective and good learners in the classroom. So, as I begin my discussion today, I'd kind of like to go through both of these course outcomes and start by showing what they mean to me as far as my viewpoint goes, and then working through some of the problems that we do and using these strategies, and then lastly I'd like to culminate them together by doing a problem that incorporates both of the different strategies that we use. So, without further ado, our first outcome that I'll cover as part of this video is number 1, which involves using a variety of strategies to problem solve. As stated, I'd like to start my reflection today with our first learning outcome, which involves using a variety of strategies to solve different problems. Now, this is something we see pop up a lot in today's K-12 education at many levels, so it's important for students to understand how they can utilize the different tools in their tool belt. It truly encourages students to utilize what they've learned from different subjects and concepts to apply it to the different problem-solving needs. So, to get started, I'd like to provide an example of how we can use this strategy to help teach our students in the classroom, as well as to help ourselves become better teachers each day. In terms of using a variety of strategies to solve different problems, we know that our students are most often challenged to do this when they're requested to solve multi-step or dimensional problems, word or story problems, or problems that require a great deal of background knowledge or special connections to different understandings or concepts. So this is important for them to try to learn in the classroom. In terms of our book, Crossing the River with Dogs, we know that we see a lot of these different problems that require multiple strategies in the set B problems of each chapter. So one example I'd like to talk about today is from chapter 5. It is number 4 from problem set B, which is called Golf Match. Alright, so here is number 4 from chapter 5, problem set B, entitled Golf Match. Now, when beginning to solve these different problems that require a lot of different problem-solving strategies, we have to start by doing a good job of organizing information as well as planning how we'll solve. So, I've provided my solution process here that starts with Polya's first step of organizing our information. So what we really want to know as a result of the problem we see here is who will tee off second in this problem. I've also outlined this information. For example, Clark stands opposite and diagonal to Diana. Chris faces the person whose name begins with the same letter as that of the person who will tee off first. And the partners tee off one after another, so we know whoever's first, the second person who we're trying to find, will be the partner of the first. As a result of our organizational step, we've been able to determine that Doug, Diana, Clark, and Chris are standing in a square, and we also know that clues are given as to their relative positions. Now it's time to use that information to go ahead and plan. So I'm going to move my paper down here, which shows my planning process, and this is a part of Polya's second step, a very important step in the problem-solving process. Now I'm not going to go into much detail on this as we'll cover it with part of our second learning outcome, but I knew that I'd have to use the looking for a pattern strategy as a part of this chapter, and I also knew, because of the different relative position information I was given, that I'd probably use the idea of drawing a diagram to really help myself work through this problem and eventually solve it. So I decided to look for a pattern and then use the drawing a diagram strategy to solve. After setting up and preparing with my organizational step and my planning step, I was now ready to move on and execute this solution process. So I started by using the clues and drawing a diagram. For example, I knew that Clark would stand opposite and diagonal to Diana, and this is a relationship I wanted to draw out as part of my diagram. Next, we knew that Chris faces the person whoever that person is, they're going to have the same letter of the first name as the person who is the first golfer. So let's say Chris starts opposite Clark. So Clark starts with a C, so we know that Chris must be the first golfer, and Doug must fit in right over here. And we also know that the partners follow one right after another, so Diana must go second. So Diana, in this case, would be the second golfer, and that's what we were trying to find, who will tee off second. But I also wanted to try another situation. So we know that Clark is always going to be opposite Diana, but we assumed Chris would go here in the first solution process. But now let's assume that Chris will go here. So now Doug must go here. Now Chris is going to stand across from the person whose name begins with the same first letter as the person who goes first. So Chris is standing opposite Diana, which must mean that Doug goes first in this case. So that's something key to identify. And then Diana is Doug's partner in this case, so we know that she goes second. So in any case, in both of these solution processes, by using a diagram and recognizing this pattern, we're able to identify that Diana will be the person who tees off second in either case. This was my solution to the process, and we'll show that right here. Diana tees off second in any case that we have in this best of ball partners match, because in the first scenario she was across from Chris and Doug was her partner that went first, and also in this scenario we had Diana across from Doug and Chris went first. So in any case, Diana is the person who tees off second in this best of ball partners match. Altogether, I think we've been able to see how this learning outcome of using a variety of different strategies to solve problems can be very effective in the classroom. It's useful to us as teachers in teaching our students, but also to those students as they use different concepts or things that they've learned to solve problems in a variety of ways. I think that this can be directly applied to our Common Core state standards for mathematics as well, and by hitting on a number of these standards, by using these different strategies, we can make it a very effective learning experience for our children. Now, moving forth, I'd like to talk about our next portion of the reflection, which involves number 3 on the list, and this is formulating and implementing a plan for problem solving. And I think this goes back to being very important in using a variety of different strategies, because it's important to have that plan in place when moving forth. So, here is our third learning outcome and my second of this reflection. Now, for my second reflection as part of this video, I'd like to talk about formulating and implementing a plan for problem solving. As we all can agree, the ways in which we plan and prepare for our problems truly help us to be successful in solving them. I think this is something we can directly apply to our students in showing them the wealth of knowledge, resources, and skills that they've learned that are available to them in solving these problems. Really showing them the tools in their toolbox can help them set up their problems effectively and be successful in solving them. I think in this class, personally, in my own experience, I've been able to take the time to read through the problem and see what skills I have in my toolbox and then apply them in the solution process. So, moving forth, I'd like to demonstrate this in an example which truly shows how we can plan effectively and use it to solve a problem. For this example problem showing how we'll plan effectively in reaching a solution, I've chosen number 1 from Chapter 4, Problem Set B, and this is entitled The Phone Number. Now, I've chosen this problem for more than one reason as well. First is that it'll allow us to plan effectively in reaching a solution, but also it is a problem from Set B, which encourages us to use a variety of strategies in solving. So, even though the chapter is entitled Using Matrix Logic, we'll also use another strategy in solving which will allow us to tie both of these learning outcomes together for a nice conclusion. Now looking at number 1 from Chapter 4, Problem Set B, the phone number, I've already taken the time to list out the important information given to me as part of the problem. Now we're ready to move into Polya's second step, which asks us to devise an effective plan. So, to begin my planning process, I thought back to the chapter that requests me to use matrix logic in some way. So I figured that I can use matrix logic to list out all the possibilities. Given my 30 possible choices for the last 4 digits of the phone number, I knew that this would be a good idea to list them out to see what I had available to me. Next, I knew there were clues given to me to help figure out the number. Thinking back to the things that I've done already in this class and that I've learned, I know that we've used the strategy of eliminating possibilities as well. So this is one that stuck out to me initially. So I will write down eliminate possibilities as a means of coming to the correct solution for the entire phone number. So by creating this matrix and listing out all the possibilities, and then eliminating possibilities using the clues that have been given to me, I know that I can come to an effective solution process. And I've wrote this down here as part of my plan for Polya's second step, and now we're ready to begin the execution of the problem. Following this very important planning procedure as part of my problem, I was able to begin my work in solving it. I started by drawing out my matrix, listing out all the possibilities for the last 4 digits of the phone number, and then I listed out these very important clues. These include that they're all even, they're all different, the digit in the tens place is less than the other digits, and the sum of the 2 larger digits is 10 more than the sum of the 2 smaller digits. One important feature I also included when I eliminated these possibilities is that I listed the clue number next to each of the possibilities that I eliminated. This allowed me to ensure my reasoning was correct if I ever made a mistake or needed to go back and correct something. After completing this process of drawing out my matrix and eliminating possibilities, I was able to come up with 3 possible answers for the last 4 digits of the phone number. These include 2804, 8604, and 4608. As you can imagine, having 3 possible options remaining when trying to figure out one phone number is not very effective, so I figured that it was time to adapt my solution process and go back to my plan to see if there was anything I could reconfigure. To begin doing this, I went back to the problem to reread it and see if there was anything I may have missed. In doing so, I realized that I may have missed some information at the end of the problem. Here, Ed, the boy in the story problem who's trying to figure out Candy's phone number, realizes that he does not have enough information to solve it, which would make sense seeing as I used the same information and still had 3 possible options for the last 4 digits. However, Candy says that she'll give Ed one more hint, and this is the sum of the digits. After this, Ed's able to come up with the correct answer. So, I decided to look at the sum of these 3 different options of their digits, and I was able to come up with the correct answer. Seeing as 4608 and 8604 both have the same sum of 18, Ed would have needed more information to solve. However, given the sum was 14, which we can assume from Candy's hint, we know that 2804 must be the last 4 digits of the phone number. And given that 492 was the first 3 digits of the phone number, we come to the answer that Candy's phone number is 492-2804. As a whole, I feel fortunate to have been able to show how we can use both of these course outcomes in solving problems, like in our last example. By planning effectively and then using multiple strategies that are very valuable in the solution process, we were able to come to a complete solution. And of course, this is something we can use in our classrooms each and every day, as well as something we can teach to our students to use the tools that are available to them and their organizational and planning strategies to be able to come to good solutions in their problems. I think this is very valuable overall, and I'm happy to have been able to share it. Now, I'd like to conclude our video with a little reflection of our reflection. Reflecting back on the 2 learning outcomes we've been able to discuss as part of this video, I think we can all agree that they're very valuable to us as future teachers, but also to our students in the classroom. By showing them what they're capable of and using all these tools, we can make them more effective learners. We can also align these different strategies to state standards to fit within the Common Core state standards for mathematics and things of this nature. Altogether, I think that both of these course outcomes are very applicable to our future careers as teachers, and it's been an honor to be able to reflect upon these throughout this video. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I hope I provided some insight as to how these learning outcomes are very applicable to our careers, as well as the whole entire learning experience. Thank you.